In part 5 of the 1993 CBR900RR restoration series, we're going to be showing you the repair and refinish of the rear fender that was purchased from Germany. We'll refinish the chain guards, paint, repair and detail the rear wheel, and then final assemble the rear end. So we'll start with the rear fender, and the first thing we need to do is repair these holes that have been drilled into it. So I first remove any hardware, and then using a plastic welding iron and ABS plastic filler rod, I'll make a repair to the holes. So the first thing I do is apply cyanoacrylate around the edge of the hole. This will help promote the bonding with the filler rod once we apply it. And then using the welding iron, I melt the ABS filler rod into the holes, first starting on the inside of the fender. Turning the fender over, we follow the same procedure from the outside. So I apply the cyanoacrylate around the edge of the holes and then fill the holes with the ABS filler rod. Then, using 80 grit sandpaper, I remove the excess plastic both on the inside and outside of the repair. As this leaves deep scratches in the plastic, I then apply cyanoacrylate to the surface of the repair, and while that is wet, I sand the area with 240 grit sandpaper. This takes the fine plastic particles from the sanding action, mixes it with the cyanoacrylate to fill all the scratches without the need for plastic filler. To prepare the surface for refinishing, I first wet sand it with 400 grit, then 1000 grit, and finally 2000 grit. And as you can see, this provides a nice key for the first coat of automotive trim coating I'll be using to replicate the OE finish. After trying many different coatings, my go-to solution for this is the Marhide Black Satin Automotive Trim Coating. I found with this particular brand, it penetrates deep into the plastic, is hard wearing, and looks OE, especially once you apply a coating of back to black for the final sheen. As the trim coating has a high solvent content, it can still leave behind any fine scratches that were left in the surface of the plastic. So to remove those, I color sand the first coat and then prep the entire fender with Scotch-Brite pad, and then apply 2 more coats to the entire fender with great overall results. Before assembling the final hardware to the fender, I just take the time to detail out all of the components. So I give all the metalwork, bright metalwork, a good thorough cleaning. I sand out any scratches in the rear tail light and reflector with 3000 grit, and then give it a final polish with Meguiar's Plasti X. We finish by reassembling all the hardware and the license plate holder before assembly to the bike. So I refinish the 2 chain guards in exactly the same way, but as they are only faded and not scratched or damaged, I simply prep them with 3000 grit wet sanding and then apply 2 coats of the Marhide automotive trim coating, again for great results. Switching to the rear wheel, the left side of the rim is actually very clean, all original paint, and only requires some minor touch-up. But unfortunately, the right side is pretty badly marked, probably from wheel weights that have been attached in the past. And so I'm choosing here to repaint the outer 3 inches of the rim and then blend this with the original paint to try and keep as much originality as possible. So starting with a thorough clean, I mask off the area I want to paint, and using soft edge foam tape where I'm going to be blending into the original paint. So using a detailing gun with a 0.8 nozzle so that I can get a finish that I don't need to cut back, I apply 2 coats of the Honda Gloss Black and then 2 thin coats of Panel Blend Clear. And while the clear is still wet, I remove all the masking and then spray along the edge of the clear with an aerosol spot blender just to improve the transition area. Once the paint is cured, I touch up the right side of the rim and then polish the entire wheel with a medium cut compound to achieve a nice smooth finish that matches well with the rest of the bike. And finally, I clean the rear brake disc, paint the inner and reassemble with the wheel. And so to my favorite part in any build is the reassembly of all the beautifully restored and refinished components. So first in is the swing arm and rear shock with plenty of anti-seize grease on all the bolts and pivot points. Then in goes the rear fender and placement of the wiring loom and shock reservoir. Once that's done, we attach the rear passenger foot pegs, the rear sets with all new rubber, gear lever and rear brake master cylinder. Then in goes the rear wheel with a new sprocket and the rear caliper. Then we install restored OE turn signals to replace the aftermarket ones that were on originally and to complement the newly restored rear fender. Then on goes a new chain and the restored chain guards, the rear light assembly, and finally the rear seat cowl that we'd restored in the previous videos. And with the final assembly of the rear end complete, I have to say I'm extremely pleased with the results. We've been able to achieve a very high level of restoration while maintaining much of its originality. In the next video, I'll be starting to pull apart the front end and taking you through the restoration of those components.